Welcome to Worlds Collide. Please comment, like, and subscribe for more content. Chapter 9. Unexpected Futures. I remained in medical when Shay swept in a few hours later. She strode into the room like a looming giant, intent on gleaning information and perhaps a twinge of retribution. She crossed the bay in 4 long, brisk strides to my side. Her quick movements caused her fur to flow like soft grass in the breeze. "Are you okay?" she asked softly as concern contorted her expression. "I'll live," I quipped groggily. The pain medication had settled in over an hour ago, and the world swam weightless. "How was your day?" I flashed her the goofiest grin imaginable, unable to restrain myself. She scanned the room as though seeking some elusive prey. "Where is Shrifa?" "I think she went to shit and the hogs ate her," I chortled. Shay shot me a concerned look before stalking off toward what I could only imagine was the doctor. I whistled to her parting figure. "I hate to see you leave, but I love watching you go," I called after her. I swore I saw her tail twitch in embarrassment. She returned a few minutes later with the doctor in tow. "What do you mean he had a severe reaction to the nerve block?" The concern mixed with anger was highly evident in her tone as they approached. "Just as I said," Shrifa countered defensively. "We needed to numb the arm to work on it properly, and he became like this." She gestured at me. "Hey," I exclaimed. "Don't you know it's impolite to point?" I reached out to grab her finger and tug on it. She snatched it away at the last instant with a look of frustration. "Can't you reverse it?" Shay groaned low enough that only the doctor and I could hear her. "Don't you think we haven't tried?" she argued in exasperation. "We're just going to have to wait for the drugs to wear off. In the meantime, we're going to have to deal with the most irritating creature I have ever treated," she sighed. I reached out, attempting to playfully catch her tail. I missed as she snatched it away at the last second, causing me to almost roll off the bed. The attending tech caught me and steadied me. I looked up at her drunkenly. "Aren't you a good kitty?" I remarked, attempting to scratch between her ears. She managed to move away and out of sight, but she appeared to be fighting against laughter. "Oh, we need to get him to a room away from everyone else," Shay said, her voice strained with embarrassment. "Very well. I need to talk to the two of you in private anyway," Shrifa relented. "Not that Mitchell will remember any of it," Shay mumbled under her breath. They rolled my bed into a private room where I was instructed to slide over to the slightly larger awaiting bed. I rolled. I swore I saw Shay's eyes roll at my unrelenting antics. Shrifa activated a wall monitor once the door was closed behind the tech. "Your biomonitor has been showing some dangerous readings," she began, looking at Shay and then me. I sobered and sat up instantly. "What?" My words were slurred even to my own hearing, but the word held a sense of urgency. "Dangerous?" "How so?" Shay asked cautiously. Shrifa shook her head and held up a hand. "Not dangerous medically. Dangerous in the way controversy will follow." She pointed at some hormonal lab values on the screen. "These values are highly elevated." "I don't know how lab values can be controversial," I mused. The doctor shook her head. "I need to run a few scans to confirm." "But you are pregnant," she said, looking at Shay. "How is that even possible?" she exclaimed in disbelief. While her body language screamed undisguised fear, I laughed as if just getting the punchline of some joke. They both looked at me, but Shrifa returned her attention to Shay. "My best guess? I believe Mitchell's biology has shifted so much that he has become genetically compatible. Biologically, he has become more Krathan than human." She brought up a new screen to compare mine to Shay's. "That would explain why some of his features have changed. His teeth are different. His senses are akin to a cub. Every internal biology nearly mirrors our own." "Does this mean I'm going to grow a tail?" The drugs were starting to regain their influence. "It would be cool to have a tail." I didn't remember anything until several hours later, when I woke up in the hospital bed. Shay sat staring off into space in a chair by the bed. I reached out and waved my hand in front of her. "Everything okay?" "Do you remember anything after they stitched your arm?" she asked without answering my question. I shook my head. "Not really." A ghost of a smile tucked at the edge of her lips. "Wait until you see the security footage," she whispered sheepishly, like a cat who had gotten into the cream. "Huh?" I gave her a bewildered expression, not unlike a dog trying to understand algebra. We met Shro and Gracia in the command officer's mess hall an hour later. On the way, I caught a glimpse of two security officers moving to trail us at a respectful distance. The captain has ordered security for us while there are refugees on the ship. He doesn't want a repeat of the attack that happened this morning. I absently scratched at the stitches in remembrance. We are also not to use the common dining facilities. Amused expressions met us as soon as we entered the officers' dining hall. I knew only a handful of people, but nearly all of them expressed barely restrained amusement when they looked at me. "Here, kitty, kitty," called Gracia from across the room. Snorts, snickers, and outright laughter erupted from around the room. Gracia punched a button on his tablet, and the large screen on the wall displayed a feed from the medical bay. I watched in horror as it showed me trying to flirt and joke cheerfully. My drunken demeanor captured the attention of everyone in the room. Even Scurry, who was in attendance, betrayed genuine humor at the antics. I wanted to shrink away and hide forever, but donned my best poker face. I swung my left arm across my stomach and bowed. "Thank you. Thank you." The video played on a continuous loop the entirety of the time. Everyone even left me an empty seat facing the monitor so I couldn't miss any of it. "How are you feeling?" asked Shro once we were seated. "I'm told I will make a full recovery." I glanced up at the screen to watch myself try to pet the medical tech and blushed. "I'm never going to be able to set foot in the medical bay again," I mumbled more to myself than anyone else at the table. Shay reached out with a playful clawed finger and placed it under my chin, turning my head to look at her. "I'll be sure to be with you if you do," she teased and then licked my cheek. Our friends, along with those happening to see the display, laughed. "How soon do we continue course?" I asked, desperately trying to change the subject. "The estimate is 3 to 4 days," answered Shro. Conversation revolved around current events. Supply ships along with armed security vessels streamed in daily. There would be no attempt at evacuating the colony. Instead, they focused on developing what turned out to be a mining colony into a fortified base. I was surprised to learn that Shay's father owned the planetside facility. "See? I told you she was royalty," teased Gracia. "I am not royalty," argued Shay in frustration. "I am a fleet officer." "Yeah." Gracia shook what resembled a fork at her. "But you wield a lot of influence." "My father holds the influence," she corrected. Gracia shrugged his shoulders. "Keep telling yourself that." We exited the dining hall to return to our own quarters with the two security officers in tow. Neither uttered anything. They just maintained a respectful distance. "I guess no more secret training sessions." "There is nothing stopping you from going," Shay countered. I shrugged just as we reached our door. "I guess you are right." We lay in bed together, joking about my reaction to the nerve blockers. She teased me and threatened my life in mock seriousness over the tech she claimed I had flirted with. I gazed down at her while she traced circles across my chest, playing with the strands of chest and belly hair. "I wonder if Dr. Shrifa could stimulate thicker growth," she mused as she pulled a strand. "Maybe we can get her to grow you a tail?" "You're insufferable." I ran my fingers gently through the thick mane between her ears. The softness of her fur never ceased to fascinate me. I could spend hours just combing through it with my fingers, and I did every chance I got. "Do you have any offspring?" she asked softly, barely above a whisper. My hand froze but then resumed. "No." "Do you?" I joked. "Have you ever thought about it?" I reached down and motioned her face up toward mine. "What are you saying?" I was starting to get worried. "Do you mean adopt?" Her ears fluttered, amused. "Just answer the question." "Once or twice," I replied carefully. Shay edged herself closer to my face and searched my eyes. "What if we could have a child together? You and I." I blinked in confusion. Did Shrifa find a way? Did she bring up the possibility? Shay smiled mischievously, leaned up, and bit my earlobe. "You did," she breathed into my ear with my lobe still caught between her teeth. Glimpses of earlier came flooding back. Something about Shrifa mentioning a cub. My body became like stone. Shay tugged at my ear gently as she pulled back cautiously and met my eyes. My mouth opened, closed, and opened again. But nothing would come out. I was even still holding my breath. I blinked, took a deep breath, and tried again. We? I couldn't get my mind to formulate a complete sentence, something that had never happened to me before. You? I stammered. Shay simply nodded without breaking eye contact. Is she sure? I am pregnant. The words were like honey, dripping with a sticky sweetness. I didn't trust my voice at that critical moment. I decided to do the only thing I could think of. I cupped her face in both my hands and kissed her. My mind raced with wonder and fear in equal measure. What about her career? What would our people think? What about Shay's father? I pushed it all aside in that moment. I realized that I didn't care. We would find a way no matter what happened. She was mine. We continued to embrace well into the night. Neither of us spoke, in fear of shattering the moment. The news had been a shock to us both. It was something we never considered because we were literally of two worlds, so different in our appearance, but the same despite them. We both stood before the captain early the next morning. Our postures remained rigidly at attention. Mashri glanced slowly between us in what looked like barely contained anger. Neither of us dared to move, much less speak. He turned to look over at Skursi and then to Shrifa before leveling his gaze back on us. Mashri let out a resigned sigh. I should have left you both on Earth and saved me the trouble the two of you have caused. He looked to Shay. You will have to face your father when we return to the station in 2 weeks. Neither I nor the military can be involved. Shay and I nodded in unison. Very good. Mashri motioned to Skursi with a flick of his hand. Mitchell, he began, Shrifa informs me you helped to save the life of one of our own soldiers. The door to the tiny conference room opened as if on cue. Mashri gestured behind them. This is Senior Troop Leader Pishro Fret. A dark-furred male in a troop tan uniform limped into the room with the use of a cane in one hand. He is the one you saved the other day in the medical bay, the captain advised. The wounded soldier limped over to stand beside the captain and faced us. He leaned the cane carefully against his leg and saluted slowly with his right hand against his chest, and his head tilted in a slight but respectful sign of submission. He grabbed his cane and resettled his weight on it with a wince of pain. I asked to meet the human who saved my life, he said in a deep baritone voice. You have made an ally. If you ever need anything, and if it's within my power, you just have to ask. He reached into his pocket and produced a medal with a silver planet orbited by a gold ring. At the top was an opaque crimson stone inlaid in a polished star. Because we cannot award you a physical representation of your selfless act, I bestow upon you my own liberation medal. You have earned this for liberating me from the claws of death. I took the medal carefully from his claws and returned a human salute. It is my honor to serve our people. Pishro Fret nodded and departed unceremoniously. Mashri watched the door hiss close before turning back to us. Mitchell, per Shrifa's request, you are cleared to train with our medical team if you choose in the time you have left on my ship. Thank you, Captain, I said with a slight bow of my head, though I'm not sure how much time I will actually have despite my desire to learn. Ah, yes, I have heard about your training sessions with the stalkers. He narrowed his gaze. I am not sure I would have authorized such a foolish endeavor, but Latra informs me you have been making progress despite his best efforts. He smiled then. If you are so intent on making yourself available to have pain inflicted upon yourself, I will not stop you. He shifted his attention to Shay once more. I think it is best for you to prepare yourself to face your father. He will be waiting for you on Shepard's Promise. He expects you to resign your commission and return home. Shay's expression soured. My father holds many expectations. My path is my own. Mashri's expression softened. As you say. Know this, however, the military also has its own expectations of you. His expression hardened once more as he took us both in. I have been in contact with both your father and military command. Your father has heard that you have found a mate, but I do not think he has yet to realize who. Command wants to debrief you both, especially you, Mitchell. You are an enigma they will want to study. I have done what I can on your behalf. Your contribution has been entered into my reports. I nodded once more. Thank you again, Captain. You are both dismissed. We departed a bit perplexed by the exchange. What do you think? I asked as we walked back to our quarters. She flattened her ears in distress. I think we need to figure out what we want to do. I will contact my father to see if I can glean any insight. You should continue to train with the stalkers. Do you think Shro and Grasha could help us? I asked thoughtfully. Shay considered it and nodded. I will speak with them. What do you have in mind? Grasha is a brilliant communications officer. Shro is a quick and competent tactician, I believe. They could help us devise a plan, I said suggestively. We kept our own counsel once we left the officers section. We had much more to discuss, but neither of us wanted to discuss it further in the unsecure areas of the ship, especially when colonists still moved about the section closest to medical. I couldn't help but feel Shay's father would soon find out about us once the right person returned to the planet. The mining colony was his, after all. We shared a brief moment outside our room before I headed for the training room. The injury was still fresh, but the time available to train was rapidly running out. I didn't expect any of the stalkers to be available, but I could still practice what I had already learned. Knowledge was great, but I needed muscle memory. I needed to be able to respond without thought to possible threats. The room stood empty as I expected. It didn't appear to have been used since I was last there. Weights remained secured to racks. Non-lethal weapons still reposed carefully on the racks across the wall. I removed one of the staffs from its resting place and returned to the center of the room to practice. My arm ached in protest as I went through the motions Prof. Ray had taught me. Each awkward transition strained the stitching on my arm, but I ignored it. As long as there was pain, I was alive, and I planned to stay that way. I returned the staff to its home 2 hours later, after wiping it clean of sweat and oils, and then found a place in the center of the room to concentrate on my hearing. There were fewer distractions here than in the forest room. I focused on the ambient sounds of the ship once those of my mind were quelled. The environmental systems emitted their usual whoosh of air, while the ship itself hummed softly with its steady emission of static energy. Voices could be heard somewhere in the distance occasionally, but never approached. They would come within range, but just as quickly retreated out of earshot. I strained to listen for as long as I could. It was then I heard the subtle shift in the air. I rolled to the side and came to my feet to face whoever had entered unnoticed. Latra leaned against the secondary bulkhead door, tossing a ball into the air and catching it over and over. He didn't look at the ball. He only stared at me curiously. I didn't expect to see you again, human. His voice held less of the contempt he first showed me when I came to his door weeks ago, though it didn't lessen his commanding tone. I promised I would not quit, I said, showing the slightest respectful, submissive gesture. Just because your team has tasks that take precedence, I have no such responsibilities. He tossed the ball at me, which I caught easily, and gestured. Follow me, human. I want to show you something. I followed him through the secondary door into a hall beyond. The section lacked the polished appearance the rest of the ship presented. The corridor was outlined in right angles instead of the graceful, cathedral curves found throughout the elegant ship. He walked with a practiced, predatory grace born of years of service. It was unlike many of the other Krathen, less rigid, more fluid. We approached a door with the swirling script that translated into restricted. The heavy bulkhead door rolled aside like a cog within a heavy machine. What awaited us on the other side was nothing like I had ever seen before. We overlooked a cold bay dominated by 2 sleek, obsidian ships that bristled with weapons and what looked like communication antennas. Krathens swarmed all over the ships like an army of ants who had found a piece of candy. I didn't have the opportunity to really study the fascinating display because we were walking along a gangway to another side room. The room featured multiple lanes to the right and a long caged room to the left. Latra stopped and requested a small energy pistol from the officer behind the counter. The officer shot me a sidelong look that implied I shouldn't be there. He eventually turned, grabbed a pistol, and handed it to Latra with a questioning look. Latra said nothing, just took it from him and motioned for me to follow him to a table at the far end, away from the armory and what looked like firing ranges. Sit, he commanded. This is a standard weapon carried by station security. He laid it on the table in front of me and seated himself. You have 2 weeks to learn as much as I can teach you. You will learn to maintain common weapons. He picked up the pistol and began taking it apart without actually looking at it. Shay will have access to one of these when she enters the station. You need to know it. Understand it. I observed the procedure with rapt attention. He began reassembling it once it was apart, never taking his eyes off me. He cycled the pistol once to test function before setting it in front of me. Now you do it. I fumbled with the switches and catches as I had seen him do. My technique wasn't pretty. It wasn't precise, but I managed to reproduce the same result. Now put it back together, he instructed. I began the arduous task of fitting all the pieces together. Even while concentrating on the pistol, it took me significantly longer to perform the task. I heaved an internal sigh when the pistol function check went off without a hitch. Latra nodded. Good enough. I want you to repeat the procedure again and again until I return. With that, he left. Nearly 3 hours had elapsed before he returned. My hands had long since begun to cramp from the repetitive motions. I found myself cracking my knuckles each time I began the process of disassembly. The armorer watched me closely from his station, like a parent watching a child about to stick a wire hanger into a light socket. I wondered if he kept waiting for me to accidentally discharge the weapon. It definitely would mark the end of my education. Latra watched me go through the motions a few times before returning it to the armorer. He made no comment about my progress, but I had begun timing myself after the first hour. While I harbored no illusion about being an expert, I had more than halved my timing. My motions were no longer clumsy like a child learning to fit shapes into a box. He escorted me from the restricted area and left me without a word.
Join us for more from Worlds Collide.